Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to help you cruise a little smarter. This is your host, Christy. I am not Lake. I am in the driver's seat, but guess what? I brought in a ringer. Please welcome the OG, the original from the DCL Podcast. Welcome back, Steve.
I feel like The Godfather, you know, when they said, I just keep trying to get out, but they keep pulling me back in. And
Horrible!
But I totally appreciate you pulling me back for this one. No, I love coming back on whenever I can. So it's good to be back and good to see you, Christy.
Good to see you. Man, the people are going to think that you're mad at us.
No, not at all.
There's always a little abuse with Steve.
Yeah, my mind always wanders to weird places. So there we go. We'll just leave it there. No, I love the DCL Podcast. I love what you and Lake are doing. And I always appreciate any chance that you guys let myself or Wake back on. So appreciate it.
Well, you're always welcomed. And this one is a fitting episode for us. We are talking about the new 2026 Adventures by Disney release.
Definitely one of our, just over the years, it's been one of our favorite things to do. And it took us several years for you and I both to finally experience Adventures by Disney. And now your family's done it, has been on them, and so has mine. And it's just an amazing experience. And I'm excited to talk about these.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So thanks for coming back for it. It's always a good show. We enjoy it. And we have a lot more listeners that are actually starting to do some more adventures with Adventures by Disney. So that's super exciting. We have a couple of listeners going this summer to Short Escapes. So we're going to have them on to discuss their experiences. And then we have somebody going to Africa, South Africa, in a few weeks. And I will be trying to record an episode with her when she gets back too, because man, that trip's on my bucket list for sure.
Yeah, how cool would that be? Just an epic bucket list. Not only just you're in Africa, but being able to see the animals. If you're an Animal Kingdom fan, holy cow, actually seeing the animals live in their habitats would just be amazing.
Right? Like an actual elephant, like walking down the road, essentially, the Savannah Road, but still the road. Oh my gosh, that would be a dream.
Definitely.
On my bucket list. So we aren't going to just talk about what our listeners are currently doing. We're going to go through the release. They have 3 new adventures, but before we get into that, let's start at the beginning.
Okay. Why don't I ask you a few questions? I'm going to tee you up and let you answer them. How's that work for you, Christy? What is Adventures by Disney for people who don't know? What is it?
Adventures by Disney is Disney's guided travel program. So I have said this before on the podcast, Mickey Mouse is not showing up on your adventure, but the amazing customer service that Disney is well known for is going to be on your adventure. Think of the customer service that you can find on a Disney cruise. It's elevated even more than you can get on a Disney cruise. It's just first class service, really individualized for your family. It's pretty exceptional.
Right. So it's kind of their guided tours where where from the time you get to your destination, they're going to take care of everything for you. And they do it in such an amazing manner. I mean, but Wake showed up with the wrong shoes on our Costa Rica trip one day. And the guy took her shoes off and said, here, put these on so you can experience the experience. And then she hung out with the kids. That's the type of service that you get on these trips with Adventures by Disney.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. And for me, for example, I need to eat gluten-free, and they're there making sure that that's not a problem. When there are trips and people have to speak in another language, there's always going to be a guide that speaks that language. And so they're able to talk to the restaurant in their native tongue to say, you know, this person can't eat gluten or can't eat dairy, and they're going to work it out for you to make sure that you are going to be accommodated.
So pretty much so these are the kind of type of trips, you know, you think about Walt Disney World, you've got to do a lot of the planning yourself and figure it out for you and your family. Disney Cruise Line is a little bit easier. You know, a lot of the stuff is taken care of for you, but you got to figure out what port adventures you want to do, what you want to do in the ports, whether you want to do anything in the ports. Adventures by Disney does give you a little bit of a leeway in some of the adventures that you do as far as what you do and experience. But for the most part, it's going to be a guided tour through a different country with a group of, how many people are usually on these groups, Christy?
Well, if we're specifically talking about land vacations, typically with a land adventure, there are 40 guests. It is a maximum of 40 guests. Although I think sometimes they say 1 or 2 more get on, but typically it's the maximum of 40 guests. And I would say at a minimum, they're going to have 13 or 15 guests.
Okay. And then as far as families go, each one of the adventures has kind of a recommended age for children too, right?
Yeah. So they're either going to be adult exclusive adventures, so you have to be 18 years or older, or they're going to be family friendly adventures where there's a minimum age, so you cannot be lower than that age. So sometimes that's 5, sometimes that's 4. And then there's going to be a recommended age, or suggested, as Disney calls it. So 6 plus, 8 plus, just depending on the adventure.
And these are kind of things kind of like with when you go to Walt Disney World, you get to know your family a little bit. You know your children and what they can do and what they can't do. So those are some things that maybe as you look at the adventure, if you're working with a travel agent, that really helps to be able to determine what adventure might be best for you and your family and what your children can do. So, I mean, obviously there's some 6-year-olds that can do things that 10-year-olds can't do. And that's not a negative. It's just that they're able to, ride a bus for hours and entertain themselves on a book, which some of these adventures have. And other kids, they need a little bit more activity.
Right. And there's sometimes a lot of walking. And so maybe it's not even, it can be for kids that you have to determine whether their walking abilities would allow them to do the 2-hour city tour or whatever. But also for some of our adults that might have some limitations, it's good to know too, and good to know what your tour is going to offer. And I will say that one of the places Disney shines with their technology services, which we all know is sometimes not that great, is their website is very thorough about what an Adventures by Disney adventure includes. So they go through like a daily itinerary, which sometimes your days can be swapped depending on what is happening in the city or whether things are closed. But they'll go through, and on this day, you're going to do these 7 things. They'll literally go through all the activities. You can see, does this look like something that your family wants to participate in?
You good? You're muted. So, and as Christy said, is if you're taking a look at these, it seems a little overwhelming at first. Like the first time I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of stuff going on. And just from our experiences with yours, Christy, I know you talked about it on your river cruise, but also in the short escape you did a short escape, right? No,
just the river. We've had so many like scheduled that were, well, there was a whole pandemic in there.
Yeah. Okay. Let me go back and let me start that again. And you can be a little bit overwhelmed by looking at all the different things that you're going to get to do, or you can be excited about it. But I will tell you this from the different guests that we've talked to, our experience with ABD, and then talking to people that we were traveling with on our Adventures by Disney's trips, is that they do a really good job of, they tend to be kind of busy at the beginning. And then as it kind of gets towards the end, they give you a little bit more free time. And they're really good with the pacing. They're really good with making it an enjoyable trip over the 7 days.
Yeah, that to me is some of the best features, if you will, of ABD versus another tour company, because they really do make it so you do a bunch of activity and then you have like an easier activity or event. So maybe you're running around going to the Sistine Chapel and doing that early morning stand in line for a couple minutes business, and then and then they'll give you either a break in the afternoon or an easier activity later. So I like how they divide up the schedule so that they don't overwhelm people and don't make it too crazy.
Yeah, the pacing is perfect. Let's touch on one more thing before we go into kind of the basics where they travel to, some of the trip types and the Disney differences and what's included. But what is probably the biggest selling point that they always point out, Christy, about these trips? And I'm thinking about who's taking you there.
Your adventure comes with 2 adventure guides. Or if you're doing a river cruise or one of the other expeditions, there would be more because it's based upon the number of people. But let's assume you're doing a 40-person land tour. You will have 2 adventure guides, and they are with you your whole adventure. So they're going to get to know you. They're going to be able to share amazing stories. They truly are storytellers, the adventure guides. And that is one of their roles. And that's what I think makes Adventures by Disney so special.
Yeah, these 2 guides actually work for Disney through Adventures by Disney. Usually one is from America and the other one is from the country that you're visiting. And so, and especially our experience with the one, usually the individual that's from the country you're visiting, they're just so knowledgeable about the country. They're so excited about sharing it with you. And on top of those 2 guides, you'll also, as you kind of go along the way, have some other guides, depending on your experiences.
Local guides that'll come on and help with the storytelling and also help with the trip itself as well. Yeah, like the tour, or like when you went to the coffee factory and you had the local individual from that coffee location to be able to share the experience. Your guide that might live in that country understands maybe the main concept, but they're not going to like feel it and know it like the person whose coffee shop it is.
Right. And the difference between that and is like with Nat Geo, which is actually owned by Disney too, the Disney company, the National Geographic tours, they have one guide. And I think they bring some different guides along the way too as you go to the different places.
The thing that's interesting, if you are a Disney fan, which I presume most of the people listening to this podcast are, but not all Disney fans go on Adventures by Disney. However,
that was going to be one of my questions later, but let's hit it now.
Yeah. If you're a Disney fan and you already know you love the product, then I feel like more of us more likely to go towards Adventures by Disney because of that love for the product as it is. And this is their best product, in my opinion. So think of if you've ever heard anybody that's done a VIP tour at Walt Disney World or something like that. This is like that level, but with you in a foreign country showing you the things. It's so special and amazing.
I agree. So should we get into where they go and some of the trip types that they have?
Yes.
All right, let's look at some of the different destinations. We are specifically talking about the land vacations, but we'll touch on some of the different trip types. Today, we'll be talking about the land adventures. So we have land adventures, which are all over the different continents, Africa, North America, Asia Pacific, Central and South America, and Europe. Then they have what is known as the escapes, which they've kind of changed these around. They used to be called the short escapes, but now they just call them the escapes. And these are really good for if you are going on a cruise, especially in Europe, right, Christy?
Well, and they're lined up to go on the cruises. So their dates are specific for when cruise ships are in town. You don't have to do the escape before or after a cruise, but they're the most convenient in some respects, which is really nice because they will take you to your cruise ship. And like in Rome, for example, you don't have to deal with that hour and a half or whatever travel to get to Civitavecchia. Adventures by Disney is taking you there. And so it's just things like that. Like they line up perfectly for it. But you could also just be in that location at the same time an escape is going on and take the tour.
And we had people like that too. And when we did the London escape before we went to Norway on the Dream this last summer, I think half the families were going on the cruise afterwards, but there were several people there was like one family that was going to go up to Scotland. So that was the London escape. So it gave them, 3 days in London where they got to really experience London, see some different highlights. And then they headed up to Scotland with their family. So you're right. It doesn't have to match up with the cruise, but they do a really good job with it. You can find them in Barcelona, London, Paris, which lines up with the river cruises, Rome, and then also Sydney for if you're traveling down to Sydney.
Just briefly, there's also the river cruises and the expedition cruises that are going to either hit the rivers in Europe or in the poles, basically, Antarctica and the Arctic. So there are other options, but then there are the land-based vacations.
Right. So the river cruises, they changed it. It used to be called river cruises. Now they just call them small ship adventures, which is like the one that you guys went on. But this is now like the Adriatic, which actually that sounds really cool, which is kind of on a small cruise ship. It takes you down the Adriatic. It focuses a lot on food and just experiences there. Rhone, the Danube. There's a Danube Oktoberfest, a Danube Christmas market, magical holidays, which I think somebody went on.
So I think the Christmas market.
Christmas market, I'm sorry.
Is first, but magical holidays is for right after Christmas ends, basically.
Okay.
So there's still going to be some lights in places. There won't be as many markets though, because a lot of them close. Similar time frame, just this one's a couple days after.
Then, as you said, the Galapagos, there's a Holland-Belgium river cruise, a tulip season river cruise, which I think it just happened. We just went through tulip season over there.
Yep.
And then the Rhine, Seine, and a Rhine Christmas market cruise, and a food and wine cruise along the Rhine as well. So a lot of different options with the small ships.
Yes. Next year, we're going to actually have the Rhone River, which is new.
In addition to these, a lot of these escapes have adult-only escapes. So if, it's you and your significant other, and you're thinking that you really don't want to spend time with other families and their kids, you can find some adult-only escapes. But I will tell you that we've had, I can't even remember, that one, it just sticks in my mind where they talked about the older gentleman that was traveling by himself, and he was cycling around Versailles with the guest that came on's daughter. I was just like,
yeah.
So I mean, don't think that if you go with families, it's going to be a bad trip. But if you do want to do adult exclusives, there are some adult exclusive trips as well, right, Christy?
Right, and those are usually when kids are in school. So sometimes there will be individuals that do not have kids. A lot of times, actually, there are individuals that do not have kids that will go during the general times, because maybe they want to do the Christmas markets or they want to do some other activity, and that's the time frame that works out. So they're going to be with families. But the great thing about ABD too is on some of the nights, they actually will take the kids away. Land-based tours, if it's a 7-night adventure, they're going to have one evening where there's going to be a junior adventure program, and they take the kids and do something else specifically with them. And the adults have their own evening that have been planned out. If it's longer than a 7-night program, then you could have 2 junior adventure night. And we were supposed to be the British Isles adventure in a month, but some different things in our schedule had made it that we had to push that trip. So we're not going to be able to do that. I think we'll do it one day, but we would have had 2 junior adventure nights on that expedition. Let's talk about this really quick while I just bring that up. Adventures by Disney has a non-refundable deposit. You cannot get a refund on your deposit once it's been like 14 days after you booked it and put down your deposit. You may move your adventure one time. So it also has to be an adventure that is out. So like, for example, for my British Isles trip, the full land schedule was not out by the time I would have to move my trip because final payment would be due. So I had to pick an escape to move it to because that's what was available, or a river cruise, because those are the things that were available to book, or you can just have, lose your deposit.
Right. We'll touch base on that one more time, probably as we finish up, as we talk about the bookings. So let's talk about where they go as far as the destinations. We told you the different continents, and we'll jump into the new ones this year. So as you talked about, we'll just start off with Africa. Nothing new in Africa this year, but I'm excited for your guest that's going to be, or the guest that's going to be coming on, hopefully for South Africa. But they offer 3 trips down in Africa, one to Egypt, which is epic, I think.
That one is on our list, although I feel like it's going to be how Lake says he's excited for every episode. I'm going to say that adventure is on my list for like almost everyone. But somebody was sharing how with Egypt, there were all these like tours that were at, it's King Tut's
down to the Valley of Kings. Yeah.
So
yeah.
They're all like standing from above and looking down, but ABD is like is like right there, where they can't clearly touch things, but right where the action is, they don't have to stand way above and look down. ABD has put themselves in the location. And that's what I would say is unique about Adventures by Disney. There are a lot of front of the line access in these tours, but I feel like ABD really goes out of their way to make that happen. Like I think I've told you before, when we did our river cruise and there was ice skating, ABD like worked it out so that they had all of the ABD participants ice skating, like go in a side entrance and get right to the front. And they gave us all quarters for our locker, for our shoes, and they had everything worked out. And they'll joke and say, don't look at anybody. Don't look in the eye, because you don't want to show them that you're just cutting in front of them. That is what they make happen. And that's the Disney difference.
I'll piggyback on that. When you do the London escape, or when you go through London, they have a day at the Tower of London where you show up an hour or an hour and a half before it opens up to the general public. You have one of the beefeaters, which is one of the guards that actually lives in the Tower of London. He comes out. He gives you a whole kind of overview of the London, Tower of London, what it's like to live there, his background, how he got there. He was in the military prior, which is what most of them are, and then kind of their jobs. And then they take you into the crown jewels. It's just you and your group, and you're the only ones in there. And normally there's a conveyor belt, and you just go by the conveyor belt and you see the crown jewels really quick. And I think there's a couple things you can read, and you got to read them really fast as you go through with the thousands of the other people with you. But here you're in there by yourselves for a good 30 minutes, and they give you a great overview. They've got one of the caretakers of the jewels, which kind of gives you all the backgrounds of the different jewels. And they had, when we were there, they just had the coronation of King Charles had happened that past year. And so all of his jewels was out that he wore during the coronation.
Steve, I feel like if you go back to whatever episode we first talked about how when I first booked the escape to London, I was like, I want to see the crown jewels. And you laughed at me just like you just did just now. And now look at you. You're like, the crown jewels experience was so special. That's actually one of the things from having to miss the British Isles one of the things I'm really sad about, because I wanted that experience. I actually looked to see if I could just jump on a London short escape around this trip, but it's not going on yet because the ship isn't cruising out of there until August or something. So
yeah,
no short escape for me. But
they say They say diamonds are a girl's best friend, and now I understand why. It was those jewels were dripping in diamonds, and they were beautiful. Okay, we're not going to
back to Egypt or Africa.
we're not going to go through each and every one of these, but we'll just give you some highlights of ones that maybe stand out to us. But Africa, you've got Egypt, Morocco, and South Africa. Egypt, I spent some time there in the military, and oh my gosh, the things that you get to do there between Cairo, seeing the pyramids, and going on an actual cruise down the Nile, and then down to the Valley of the Kings, and eventually ending up over on the Red Sea, where, if anybody knows, some of the most beautiful scuba diving in the world is in the Red Sea. So just an amazing trip to go to Egypt.
And the thing that's nice about these adventures to maybe, if we can call them the exotic locations, is they've done it so that you don't have to do the guesswork. Like Morocco would be cool. Would I be afraid of doing something wrong or going to the wrong place and having some sort of, I don't know, experience I don't want to happen? Yes, I would be afraid of that. And at least with Disney, they're going to tell you, do this or don't do this, and go here and don't go there. And they're going to take care of all that. I know a lot of people will actually use some of the exotic locations as a way to get to those countries with a lot less stress. So
Definitely.
Like China and Japan are really popular from that. And Vietnam was an adventure location in the past. And so same.
And that's a good segue, because I was going to turn to Asia, and all three of those are places. Well, I think I'd feel pretty comfortable in Japan, but just because I've been there before, Japan, I think is a pretty easy country to navigate. But if you're not used to, but I would definitely, ABD for me, China, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia would definitely, those pique my interest of having, that service that ABDs can provide and being able to see the different sites there. Also, they have stops in Australia and New Zealand for the Asia Pacific. So some pretty epic trips there. Let's move on to Europe, where we're going to see two of the new trips. We'll go over the older ones first, and then we'll talk about the new ones that they've added this year. They've got the British Isles, Germany, England, and France. Central Europe, which gives you Prague, Salzburg, and Vienna. Greece, which actually all three of those are from there. I forgot the Greece one's different too, isn't it?
Yes, the Greece one's different. So Central Europe is still an option for 2026.
But Iceland, Italy, Rome, Tuscany, and Venice, Italy, Amalfi Coast, and Florence, Ireland, Northern Italy, and Switzerland, which is a popular one if you like to see scenery, Norway, Sicily, Scotland, Portugal. Let's turn to the three new ones. Where do you want to head first? You want to head to Greece or Switzerland?
Let's head to Greece.
All right, let's talk about the Greece cruise. Let's talk about the Greece tour, Christy. What stands out with you on that one?
Well, I think what stands out to me is that they've changed the locations from the previous adventures to Greece. And we did talk about this briefly before we started recording. Not that those locations in Greece that it used to go to, which is Santorini and Crete, and they both go to Athens. Not that they weren't fun and exotic or however you would describe it, right? But you can easily get to those locations via cruise ship. And I guess I feel like if I'm doing a land vacation, I want to feel, to me personally, like I'm doing something that we're not doing via cruise ship. So this way, now they're going to Athens, Rhodes, and a whole place. I can't even make my lips say these letters together.
It's a Peloponnese.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, I did it.
Yeah, so you're gonna start off with Athens, get the overview of Athens, just an iconic city, which you can obviously see on Disney Cruise Lines too when you cruise down to Greece. But I think
Athens has a ton to do, and they're gonna figure it out so that you're not standing up there on the Acropolis when it's 99 degrees outside and 2,000 people are with you.
Which we did.
Yes.
Yeah. So once again, we can reiterate this again and again, but they will make it special. They get you up there early in the morning, so you're going to see the sunrise or something like that, or
they're going to do it at night, which is also amazing.
Right. But I think what the focus of this is, instead of just seeing the culture of Greece, what they've reconfigured this trip into is you're going to go across the Peloponnese and Athens, and you're really talking about the mythology of Greece. And they're going to go to a lot of the ancient sites that a lot of the mythology, Greek mythology, has come from. So that, I think, is kind of the difference. On top of the history and everything, the sites that you're going to be able to see, you're also going to be able to snorkel and kayak. You're going to be doing shopping, sailing throughout the Aegean. When you get down to Rhodes, it's really going to immerse you into kind of Greek mythology and the history of Greece.
And both of us did different boat cruises in Santorini on our cruise. And that was one of the highlights of the cruise, just being out there on that water. I've talked about this on the podcast before. I am always a fan of taking a boat from the ship. Like if I have more opportunity to be close to the water and at the water, that is my happy place. And so that little break is going to be special for these adventures.
Right. So if you're adventurous, like not only are you getting history, but when your fourth day, you're going to be in a city called Epidaurus. You're going to get to kayak the aquamarine waters of a cove that contains the submerged ruins of the sunken city of Epidaurus, and then snorkel above the ancient streets and structures located just 7 feet below the water surface. And the water is so clear. The Aegean and the Mediterranean water is so clear. That would be kind of epic to see.
Yeah, that kayaking excursion would be right up your alley. And it would be something I'd be willing to do because I figure they won't leave me stranded if I can't figure something out. Like there will be somebody to help me. And let me just say one other thing. I have mentioned this before. I feel like I might have ADD. And when it comes to listening to like a lecture on some ruin or history location, sometimes I have a hard time focusing on it. However, I enjoy the information. I just need it given to me in a special way, which yes, you can all make fun of me for all of this, but Adventures by Disney has figured it out. Like on our river cruise, we were in all of these older cities and getting tours of these cathedrals and why and different war locations and stuff. And man, they make it so interesting. I remember Blake listened to this local guide about an art museum for 2 hours, and both of us were enthralled the whole time. And that's impressive.
Oh, it totally is. And to the flip side of that, because there's 2 adventure guides, a lot of times if you've got younger kids and stuff like that, when they are going to like a history place where everybody's going as a group there, one of the guides will take the kids off and they'll do a scavenger hunt, or they'll make it kind of a fun visit for them, so that as the adults you can kind of concentrate on learning and experiencing that place.
Well, and the Louvre is an example of that. So in the France and England trips, or any of them that go to France, they always take the children in the Louvre, which is the big museum in France. And this place is huge. Like you could walk for 20 minutes just getting from one end to the other. And so they have figured out a way to make it fun for the children, but then, take the adults to see Mona Lisa and the other things.
Yeah. So, well, that's Greece. Let's move on to the next trip that they've introduced this year, which is Switzerland. My brother and his husband just got back. They went in the winter there, and the pictures were just amazing in the wintertime with the snow and everything like that. They got lucky. They did a couple of hikes, actually, believe it or not. It was clear enough for them to do it. But this time, you're going to be going in the summer. Spring, the summer, and the early fall, and just an amazing place to go and visit. Have you been to Switzerland?
Only.
Well, you guys went, right before your river cruise, right?
Right. Only as part of that. Yeah. So we didn't get to experience much. I sort of wish we had arrived in Zurich so we could see more of that town, but just the edge.
Right. Well,
like literally when you left the airport, you were like, you could go to Switzerland or France. It was literally a door. Like this door takes you to France and this door takes you to Switzerland.
Oh man, I love it. Parlez-vous français or Guten Tag, one of the two. Yeah. Exactly. All right. So on this trip, it's going to be 8 days, 7 nights. You're going to visit Zurich, Grindelwald, Lake Brienz, Zermatt, the Alps, Gruyere, Lucerne, and Montreux. And if I probably butchered a couple of those. But in this, you're going to be able to take in the beautiful landscape. You're going to be riding on trains. You're going to be doing hikes throughout there. Twice, you get to visit Swiss chocolate craft making workshops. I mean, that was just making my mouth water. You get to make your own chocolates on one of them, which I think would be totally amazing. You get to do a snow tube ride high above Zermatt. And you get to go to the winemaking region of Lavaux, Vineyard Terraces, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And then you also get to visit the Olympic Museum Village as well, and an after-hours event. And I think your farewell dinner, which we haven't talked about that yet, is there at that Olympic Village or Olympic Museum, which I think would be amazing.
Yeah. See? More trips. Blake would love this trip. To have a little winter wonderland in the middle of summer.
So, one thing that we didn't really talk about is, well, we'll get to that one, which wasn't included, but that is Switzerland. Let's move on to what's their next one, Christy, that they added.
So they have the London, Paris, and Rome Iconic Europe tour, which they've said is reimagined.
I didn't really see what was different on there. But then again, that was the one that you booked. So I'm not really familiar with all the different things that you're going to be able to see.
Yeah.
I mean, the main part of it is you're going to basically visit 3 of the most amazing capitals in Europe. You're going to go to London, you're going to go to Paris, and you're going to go to Rome, and you're going to get to see the highlights in it. And the London part of it is similar to the London Escape, where you see the crown jewels. You get to go in the London Eye, which is actually really cool. You get to visit St. Paul's Cathedral, feed the birds. From Mary Poppins was filmed
Mm.
outside of St. Paul's Cathedral. Well, at least I'm not sure if it's filmed outside of there, but that's where that kind of took place. When you go over to France, you're going to get a tour of Versailles. You're going to get to go to the Louvre as well. And then Rome, just all the iconic things. You get to do an Italian cooking class. You get to visit the Vatican Museum, the Sistine Chapel, which you get to actually go in as a private tour. You get to be in the Sistine Chapel for, I think, like 30 minutes or something like that. Just you and your group, which normally that's a long wait to get in. And then you're there for like 15 minutes and they usher you out quickly.
Yep. And then you get to be a gladiator.
You get to be a gladiator in the Colosseum as well. So that, I think, is that still on your bucket list? Are you still thinking about that one maybe?
Yes, but maybe not now because we're going to do the Rome escape. Or if I can talk them into letting us do all of the Italy tour, then that's what we're going to call on the next week and see what happens. Or we'll just do the Rome escape. But that one did seem cool. What I'll say that I would probably do at this point is just do another tour that gets me to those locations because we'll have had the Rome escape or the Rome part already done. So we don't need that part again. And so like the British Isles would take you to the London part, or the England, France tour will take you to those tours or to Paris and London. And so I would maybe do it another way.
Yeah, I think breaking it up and doing the short escapes with the cruises on there between those three cities is a great way to do it, personally.
Right.
Yeah. But if you wanted to hit all three of those, I mean, what an iconic European vacation that is. So,
and you're getting all of the best locations like knocked out in one shot.
Exactly. Well, besides Europe, they also go to North America. So if you don't want to take that, or you're worried about traveling over to Europe right now, or just, the cost of traveling to Europe, they also have many adventures here in North America. You go to Alaska, Arizona, Utah, you go up to Canada, Calgary, and Canadian Rockies. I thought they were going to do away with this, but they still have the Canada, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island tour, which is up in the northeastern part of Canada. They have Wyoming, which I would love to do that one. And then they have one that we'll touch on here at the end is the Disneyland Resort in Southern California tour as well.
Yes.
Besides that, the last area of the world that they kind of focus on is Central and South America, which is the one that we did. We went down to Costa Rica. You've got an Amazon escape, a short Amazon escape. You've got Colombia, Costa Rica, Galapagos Islands, which we already talked about, and Peru as well. So that's kind of where they travel to. I thought it'd be kind of cool just to once again touch on what's included in the Disney difference before we finish up, Christy.
Yep.
Okay. So I think that we've touched on a lot of these things, but I think it's a good thing to go over one more time is just the Disney difference, because as we said, you're going to have their two adventure guides with you the entire time. It's more than just seeing sights. These adventure guides are going to immerse you into the culture, the experiences you are going to have. You're going to be meeting with people. I mean, sometimes it's easy to go to a country and you're just kind of doing your own thing. You don't actually get to talk to the people. I mean, some people are more outgoing and they get those experiences. But if it's your first time going to a country, you might be a little shy or whatnot. And, getting out and meeting, the actual people who live in China. So they're going to immerse you in these different experiences where you get to actually meet and actually be part of the Chinese culture or whichever land adventure you're going to. The hassle-free travel, I think that's something that we can both... it's nice to plan our own vacations, but isn't it great if somebody else plans it for you, right, Christy?
100%.
So, you don't have to worry about your bags.
I want you to talk about the bags, but it's the little things that, for example, I have been to Italy over a handful of times, but I haven't done a tour of the Colosseum yet. I haven't done some of these tours that I've never done pasta making in Italy. Like, these are things that would be really cool, memorable experiences, and just I haven't done them. And I guess with Disney, I know that it's going to be an experience I'm going to like. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna explain the gladiators and the Colosseum to me in a way that I'm not going to tune it out.
Right.
That's the Disney difference to me. But then they do things like they're going to have water. If you might be thirsty, they've already thought of it and have water on the bus or snacks on the bus. If you have allergies, you have to work yourself out a little bit there, but at least you'll know in advance. But even on the river cruise, when we would leave to go off to an excursion, they had the bucket of snacks there and they said, don't forget to take, like, they think of these things so that you are the most prepared for your adventure.
Exactly. And when they say VIP, I was shocked. We landed in Costa Rica last year. And we got off the plane and I was like trying to figure out how we're going to get from the airport to the hotel. And I didn't even know this. And it's included. And I should have known this, I guess. But we walked down to the baggage area and there's a guy with an Adventures by Disney paddle. And he's like for the Creasy family. I'm like, what? Like I was like planning on, spending money on a taxi and everything else. And nope, they were there. They picked us up. And this was like 2 days before our adventure started because they know when you're going to give them all this information. They know when you're coming in. They're going to pick you up. They're going to take you to the hotel. We had to pay an extra night for the hotel, obviously, because we were there a day ahead of time. But from the moment we landed in Costa Rica until the time we left and we got to the airport, Adventures by Disney was with us and took us all the way through it.
Yep. And when you're changing hotels on these land adventures, they have a system in place where they're going to come get your luggage and then move it and get it to your next hotel. You don't have to think about that stuff. Yes, you have to put your things in it, but you don't have to worry about lugging it downstairs and carrying it. One of the other, maybe it was at a training that I did, and they were talking about how you'll be in some of these European cities and people will be on a land tour and they're like lugging their luggage down the cobblestone street to get to the end of to get to their next hotel or to the bus or wherever. And Adventures by Disney does it for you. You're not lugging your luggage down any streets once you've gotten to your tour, or if you've booked the hotel to meet whatever, like the Steve experience where you did the pre-stay at the hotel or at that same hotel, and then your airport transfers would be included.
So let's talk about what is included. As you said, all of your transportation once the adventure began is included. So if you're going to fly from one place to another, your flights will be included. The bus.
Yeah, the internal flights.
Exactly.
Buses are going to take you. Your gratuities are included, except for your adventure guides. There is a formula that they say. I want to say it's like $20 a person, a guide a day. So if you had 4 people in your family, you would pay that times that. And those are the only things not included. They've tipped your hotel. They've tipped the people in your baggage. They've tipped your bus driver. They've tipped all the guide that's showing you the museum. They've tipped all of these people. So that is all included for you, which is fantastic. Other things that maybe aren't included, and we probably still have what's included to discuss, but other things not included is you'll see on the schedule, it'll say 6 lunches are included and you're going to be there 8 days. So that means you have 2 lunches on your own. And so there'll be some on your own time, and on your own time would be an expense for you. But if it's something that is a part of your day, they are going to make it so that you're not paying for it. Like even if you're in Europe and you have to go to the bathroom, they have a quarter to put in the machine to let you know, as a part of your tour with your time together. If you're getting the locker, like I said, at ice skating, they're giving you that money. They're taking care of all those little details for you.
So again, transportation and transfers included, mission fees to attractions and performances. You'll have VIP access to a lot of events like we talked about, the Royal Crown Jewels, the Sistine Chapel, several other different things.
Coliseum.
The Coliseum. And as Christy said, most meals are included during your trip. And the ones that aren't, the guides are amazing in telling you where to go. You can say, hey, this is what our family is looking for. Or, hey, we just want to hang out in the hotel and just get room service. And you can do that too.
Yep.
So we've touched on a lot of different things. Boy, I love Adventures by Disney. I love this product. I love the experiences. I love hearing people's experiences when they get back, Christy.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
and you can find some podcast episodes that we have by going to DCLpodcast.com and searching Adventures by Disney. And we have the website that hopefully will show you at least the different episodes that we have recorded on it. So you can listen to different episodes that we have. And we have more coming. Like we just did one with the Galapagos. And like I said, we're going to have South Africa coming up.
So I've got 2 more questions before we talk about the actual dates for booking and the booking process for you, Christy. Okay. We kind of touched on this one, but what type of families take these trips? From my experience, it isn't. What was amazing was there was a lot of families, because it was spring break, that there were a lot of families that booked it last minute because they're kind of like, we were going to do this, and then we couldn't find this, and then we saw this thing, Adventures by Disney, go to Costa Rica, and it looked like fun, so we booked it. And they weren't necessarily Disney people, and they had a blast. I mean, and matter of fact, one of the families that we had the most fun with there, they were from Baltimore, and that's what they did, and just really enjoyed it. So you're going to have a wide variety of people on these different trips.
Yes. And there'll be some younger kids or some older kids, but yeah, it's just people that like to travel, whether it's with a family or a solo. And that's what's great is that there are other people there. So you could do this trip even by yourself if you wanted, because somebody else is also making sure that you have made it back to the hotel and all of those things, which is for traveler is a really nice feature as well.
And then I thought this was a good one too. Is there, in your mind, is there a good ABD to maybe start off with? Maybe people want to dip their feet in it. That's kind of a question people ask. Like, what cruise should I take first if I've never cruised before? Like ABD. Do you have any thoughts on that, Christy?
I would say a couple of thoughts. One is it's the one that interests you the most because there are a lot of money. Yeah, there are a lot of money and there's value for that money. You are getting value out of what you pay, but it's a lot. And so it's your hard-earned dollars. And so what interests you the most? But I would say also some starter ABDs, like popular starter ABDs are the one you did, Costa Rica. And that one is a starter ABD for a lot of people because it has some of the lowest price per person fees for their adventure. Another very popular sort of starter ABD is the Southern California and Disneyland Adventure. And sometimes that one has a short escape. So if that's something you'd be interested in, I would just look into the feature, but there is not a short escape for 2026. So that's a good one. They take you to like the Glendale.
The Imaginary Studio.
Yes, the Imagineering Studios there. You get some behind the scenes at Disneyland. There's a lot. And so it's for a Disney fan. It's a really good adventure to do. This one's on my bucket list for sure. It is something I actually considered doing for when I turn 50 and you turn 60, Steve, that summer, because I was like, that would be kind of cool as, something that I love and to getting that like little behind the scenes sort of angle. But then I think Italy is another popular first timer ABD because the Italy tour, the main Italy tour takes you Rome and then to Florence and then to Venice, which are maybe the 3 regions of Italy that are very popular. And I feel like that one just gets a lot of first timers.
I agree with you on all of those. And the Costa Rica one's really good, especially if you have adventurous kids, because you river raft, you go zip lining. Yeah, it's definitely there's some history there, but it's definitely more kind of an adventurous sort of ABD. Let's turn to the actual booking. Okay, so you're going to open May 6th. And I'll just go through the dates really quick, but then we can talk about like how you book it, Christy. So May 6th is going to be for previous ABD guests for 3 or more adventures. May 7th for previous AB guests if you've been on one. May 8th is DVC, Castaway Club, Club 33, Golden Oak. And I will say, if you're thinking about, for our Castaway Club members, if you're thinking about doing a short escape with Adventures by Disney and you've got a cruise lined up, but they get on it quick because those can, if it's associated with cruise, they tend to fill up. And then May 9th is for the general public. Christy, how do people book Adventures by Disney? A little bit different than Disney Cruise Line.
Yeah, so this is the part that's not my total favorite, is that you have to call. So they have not figured out a way to have you not call yet. And so you are calling for payments, you are calling for bookings, you're calling for questions. You can call your travel agent. You can call me if you would like to work with me to book your Adventures by Disney. There's no additional cost for that. And I can help pick the right one for you. If you're working with another travel agent, especially one that sells Disney products, they too would obviously be happy and able to assist you with booking your ABD. But yeah, it's a phone call, sadly. And definitely one other thing, if you are not a previous ABD adventurer, you're using like your Castaway Club number or your DVC, sometimes they can link it, but you need to make sure your travel agent knows or you're prepared with whatever your My Disney Experience / Disney account email is, and or sometimes your Castaway Club number or your member services number, because sometimes their system doesn't have it all together and sometimes it does. So sometimes they can find you with just your email. But if you are trying to early book because you qualify another way, make sure you have a way for them to look you up.
Now, do these prices go up? So with the booking window opening up right now you can, on select land adventures outside of North America, you can save $500 per adventurer. The North and Central American ones are only $400 per adventurer. That's not for everybody. You have to book early to be able to get that. Those will run out, but
it's kind of like the first families that go to book get that discount. And then once that occurs, the discount is gone. And it might be 2 families, but it might only be 1. It might be a certain number of people. So they have a criteria And it's, by each week that they offer that event, which we didn't talk about. When can you do ABD? They are all year long. The most dates are in the summer, but many of them are offered at other times as well. The holidays in December is another popular time. Sometimes the week of Thanksgiving, they'll have an excursions, and then spring break. And I realize we're working around the kids' schedules a little bit here, but I'm sorry, that's what Disney is doing. And so if you wanted to go away in March or April, they do have adventures that line up with those as well.
No, some like Costa Rica run all year round. And then some like in Europe, they're just.
But it's not every date all year long. It's like dates that Disney thinks they're going to fill because they need a certain number of guests or they're going to cancel the adventure.
Correct. So your most bang for your buck is to book opening day. Hopefully you can snag one of those reduced savings, either $500 or $400. There's one caveat if you're a DVC member.
Yes, if you're a DVC member, it's still going to be cheaper to book with that savings that you could get on opening day. But as the price goes up, because just like with the cruise ship, if they fill up the adventure, they're going to raise the price. If you are a DVC member, you get the opening day full price, so not the discounted price, but anytime you book. And I have used that to book my adventures because I'll have booked it after it first came out or whatever. The price will have gone up and then I can get that DVC price, which is really nice.
And I think we should touch on this one more time. Once you book an ABD, let's go over that booking restriction because that's kind of important. It's very different than Disney Cruise Line.
Yeah, so your deposit for a land tour is going to be 10%. And I think Expedition Cruises is like 15%. And if you were doing a private adventure, it's 20%. But after you put down the deposit, and once you sign, there's this adventure agreement. Once you sign that, your deposit is non-refundable. So that means you never get your deposit back. You can move it one time. And I think the fine print used to say like one time within 2 years or 1 year or whatever, but that's the reality. I think it's 1 year. That's the reality of it anyway. Basically, it's going to be you can move it to something already available to be booked. And it's typically, I think it's 2 years, but again, it has to be available to be booked. The deposit becomes non-refundable. You can buy insurance either through Disney or a private or third-party source. Sometimes your credit card will work. So if you have to cancel for a covered reason, so some reason that medical or travel insurance would let you cancel a trip, then you can have that deposit back if it's more than just moving it one time.
So a lot of moving parts with Adventures by Disney, but just an amazing product, amazing experience. If people want to book and they don't have a travel agent yet, Christy, how can they get a hold of you?
You can reach me at Christy@packyourpixiedust.com. On my website, packyourpixiedust.com, it has a contact me page. You can find the ways to get in touch with me, social media message, and then I'll send you to my website or whatever after the fact. So at packyourpixiedust.com, at the contact me page, there is actually my business phone numbers on there and email. So you can reach me those ways. And we'll set up a call to talk this week if you are interested in trying to book for opening day, or in the weeks in the future if you need a little bit more time to think about it.
And I think if it's your first time in booking Adventures by Disney, using a travel agent I would highly recommend that because it's just a little bit different than probably most of the vacations people have booked before.
Yes. And we can help you guide through the process. I'm sitting on hold. You don't have to. And it's the one place you get to call one number, talk to one person. You don't have to get a new person every time you call or whatever.
So I thought we could finish it up with this, and I'll go first because I'm gonna spring this on you. Thinking back on your river cruise, think about one moment that like really just cemented what ABD was for you. And I've kind of got mine, I guess, and that was our family when we travel, and we had just amazing experiences together in the different things that we did. But we always get the cheapest hotels and everything like that. And 9 times out of 10. When we open up our window, it's become a joke now. We're looking out over a parking lot. Even at the Disneyland Hotel, we did that. We're looking over a parking lot and the air conditioners and stuff. But boy, when we got to the hotel that we stayed at in Costa Rica, which is next to the Arenal volcano, Anawake and I came into the room and there was a hot tub in the room and the windows were closed. And we opened up the windows. There was a big patio that you walked out on. And I'll send a picture of this. But the volcano was right there. The volcano was right there. It was like one of the most amazing, beautiful pictures that I think I've been able to take, and just watching that at sunset after we got back from dinner, and just having, the laughs that we had with the different friends we made and our family that night, and looking at the sunset as it set over the Arnall volcano. It was just a really magical moment. And I think those are the type of things that I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different experiences you can have with Adventures by Disney and your travels and everything like that, but that was just a magical moment for us. How about you, Christy?
Man, one of the things that was most magical for me was these so you have to take a bus, for example, for certain locations, right? You leave your hotel or your cruise ship, in my case, you take a bus. And the adventure guides are so good at storytelling. They're like teeing up your location for you while you're on the bus, giving you things to like be excited about. And I guess this is where Disney could come into it, how Disney relates. They just have it down, and they have the storytelling part. Like, they immerse you in it and they make you excited about it. I realize I'm not putting this into words very well, but it is so special. And then for me, the second thing that was just extra special, well, besides the guides being like so good with my son, they were just so good with him. And one of them, like, he even saw at the airport when we got home, and this adventure guide was still just so kind to him. And, he had just gotten off a long flight. He just got done working, and yet was still just being so generous with his time with my son. And it's the other people that you make. Like, we're traveling with a couple that we have now had dinner with several times here in Florida when they've come for visits. And we are all going on a cruise next summer. And these are people that we met on the ABD. It's a special product. I am frugal. Now, people might laugh, and they know that I will spend money on a certain cabin on a cruise, but I am also pretty tight in some areas with my money. And it's worth me figuring it out for our family to say, how can we make this happen? Because it's so special.
I love that. So I think for all of you that have been stuck with us in this long episode, it's long because it's a product that we both love.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, thank you for coming back. Steve sent me, it was a note. It wasn't a napkin, but his handwritten note, which was like the original way he would send me podcast notes, but in an outline before we would record back in the day, like 8 years ago back in the day. It was handwritten on a note. So when I got my handwritten note today, left a little spot in my heart. I'm like, oh, like the olden days.
That was back when we were using Skype and there was no Zoom and all this other stuff. So it's such a different experience being able to see you and talk to you. So thank you for having me back. It was fun to be able to talk about this, but mostly just spend some time with you, Christy.
Yeah, same. For our listeners, where can they find you?
I'm mostly on Instagram now, DCL Adventures, DCL_Adventures. So we just got off the Wonder. We are actually headed to Peru on an Adventures by Disney in June. So come on over, follow us along. I'll try and put up pictures, and I'll try and be better at put a video every now and then too. But DCL_Adventures.
And we'll talk to you about it when you get back.
Definitely.
And you can find me again at Pack Your Pixie Dust, Instagram and Facebook, and my website. You can find Lake at MouseGen on Instagram and YouTube. You can follow the podcast at DCL Podcast, Instagram and Facebook, and our website with the same handle. If you haven't left us a 5-star review, if you would be willing to do that, we'd really appreciate it wherever you listen. But it is especially important on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate those listeners who've been leaving us over the last few weeks. It really helps our ranking, and we appreciate it. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for having me, and goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.